that's going to need to be replaced. And we need to make sure that any cleaning agents, any that are used in our ventilation system, are approved to be used in the ventilation system, because that's where the air will be traveling all the time that we're breathing, and we need to make sure that we're using products that are approved for that application. So we look at some specific items. Plaster and stucco in our structure are concrete and are fairly resistant to contamination, and so we can actually salvage those as long as we're able to open the wall cavity, remove any insulation, and dry out that wall cavity, address any mold issues that might be within the wall cavity. But the plaster and stucco we can salvage. Cabinets and countertops, we really need to look at what the material is that was used. Frequently that they will disintegrate in that wet, flooded environment. The non-porous tubs, toilets, sinks, we can clean and salvage. The plumbing associated with it typically is going to be sealed, but we may want to do a chlorine flushing through the plumbing system just to make sure that has been cleaned as well. Wood flooring, the actual wood flooring, we can do the cleanup on that wood flooring and salvage it. Windows and doors, again, it'll depend on individual situations what we're looking at. The OSB or particle board, OSB is oriented strand board and particle board plywood. It'll depend on how long that they've been in the water, and we really can't make a general statement. You'll need to look and see if the structural integrity is still there, whether they have delaminated and come apart. Typically the particle board will disintegrate when it's wet, but the OSB and plywood probably we can salvage and can be cleaned. This is the sequence that they typically recommend for actually going in and cleaning and removing the structural members that need to be removed from a flooded home. Take out the cabinets and doors first, because frequently, even if we can save the cabinet, we need to remove the wall board and things that were behind it. Remove the trim that is in the house. Pull down any ceiling materials that need to be removed, and then we start looking at the wall. The drywall, sheetrock generally will need to be removed. Again, we're looking at it both from a mold standpoint as well as the flooded water standpoint. If it's strictly flood water, typically the water will wick up about 2 feet above wherever the water level was, but you really need to examine closely what that wall board looks like. The insulation will need to be removed. Paneling typically needs to be removed because it will become misformed or warped when it's wet, and as part of that clean out process we need to be removing the fasteners as well, because they'll need to be removed before we do any rebuilding. Once we have everything removed, then we will be looking at sweeping down the surfaces before we get into the cleaning process. So that brings us to the end of the first part of looking at the actual flood cleanup process. And then we'll step in the next section and talk about the rest of the flood cleanup process, the washing that needs to be done, the sanitizing, and then in the last section we'll look at building dry out.